Gemar Chatima Tova to all of you. 2 years ago, I stood on this bima and I extolled my mother's virtues after she flew to Israel for her granddaughter's wedding and the airline lost her luggage. And she had a brilliant line about how the most important thing that she kept with her were memories. Unexpectedly, my seemingly healthy mother at 85 years young died exactly 7 days after I shared those remarks. Last year, I spoke about my 50th birthday and how I was born as the Yom Kippur War started. And I posed the question before all of us, is it possible that Israel could learn from its mistakes, and would they happen again? And then, 12 days later, October 7th occurred. This year, I will be speaking about eliminating Iran's nuclear capabilities and winning the Powerball lottery. Just kidding, I'm not going to talk about Iran. I'm going to leave that to the Israelis to deal with. But I am going to talk about winning the lottery with you. I find myself in Manhattan a lot. Sometimes Dory and I go there for dinner, for a little bit more anonymity. We go to see shows. It's a great place to see a movie. And every time I'm driving home on the West Side Highway, right about 125th Street, there's a giant sign that tells me exactly what the Powerball is for that week. And inevitably, my head starts to wander. I ask myself the same question each time. What would I do with all of that money? And I go through that skit in my mind that Steve Martin made famous on Saturday Night Live, where, of course, we would solve world peace and we would feed all the hungry children, but what about the houses we would buy and the cars that we would get? And it becomes this whole fantasy that takes up my entire mind for the entire ride home, so much so that I normally pull into the garage and say to Dory, hey, get off the computer, I need to look at some homes on Zillow because we just won the Powerball, even though we didn't. A few years ago, I officiated at a wedding on a Saturday night, and that night had one of those mega drawings. It was close to $1 billion. And to be incredibly cute and sweet, the hosts of the wedding decided that they would purchase a Powerball ticket for everybody and put it under their plate. And everyone is dancing and having a good time and laughing, and then everyone is starting to leave the wedding. And I'm sure that the winning ticket is somewhere under someone's plate. And I have this dilemma. Should I just walk over and start collecting these tickets? But that would look wildly inappropriate for the rabbi to go collecting all of these tickets under people's desks. And then if you won, that would be even worse. And then my worst fear was that the winning ticket was under someone's plate that was going to be thrown in the garbage. And all of my worst fears were actualized. So I just took my single ticket home and I said, this has got to be the one. And I went home from the wedding. And the next morning I showed up at Minyan, which means I didn't win. But ironically, I'm beginning to believe more and more, especially as I grow older each day and each year, that I have indeed won the lottery. And I believe that most of the people in this room can and should feel the exact same way, that they have won the lottery, that you actually hold the winning ticket, but most of us don't even realize that it's in our hands. There wasn't a rabbi in North America that didn't speak about the challenges of being Jewish this past week, even this rabbi. And even with those challenges, even with the world seemingly on fire, even with inflation at record rates, even with crippling tuition, are we not aware that we hold a winning ticket? That we live in a reality that our ancestors could only have dreamt of? If we were to somehow or another call a seance and bring all of our ancestors from different generations back to this room right now, and we gathered them around the table and we told them our challenges of the past year, I promise you, more of them would be shocked that we have a state of Israel than they would be by the fact that it was attacked by its neighbors. They would be in awe that this synagogue is bursting at its seams, that we have 2 rooms filled and we have 10% more attendance than last year. Because they were sure, whether it was 50 years ago or 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, that they were at the beginning of the end of Judaism. There was a philosopher by the name of Simon Rabidovich. He was Polish, and he wrote a brilliant and now famous essay called "The Jews, the Ever-Dying People." And it begins with this phrase: "The world makes many images of Israel, but Israel only makes one image of itself, the people that are always on the verge of ceasing to exist." Rabidovich continues, "We can hardly find one generation which didn't consider itself the final link in Israel's chain." Rabidovich died in 1957, but ironically, this article was published posthumously and became famous in around 1986, proving his theory correct. My question is there antithesis to Rabidovich? Could it not be us right now? Could we not be the greatest generation Jewishly to ever exist? The ones that have the most accomplishments, the most success, and have proven the most exceptions? If my grandparents, 3 of whom I never met because they died before I entered this world, if they could come through those doors and meet me and we could talk for an hour, they would be in awe and they would fail. I and my brothers, not unique to me, we represent everything that they came to this country for. We represent every bead of sweat that fell from their forehead. We represent everything good that they struggled for, and they would be proud. And I don't think there's one of you here who has grandparents who wouldn't respond the exact same way. If my paternal grandfather, who died when he was just 50 years young, he died from hypertension 2 years before they invented blood pressure medicine. If he would see how far the world has come in medicine, how many possibilities there are, how many people are able to, let's say, gain a pregnancy when otherwise it would seem shut off to them, how many miracles have been brought to fruition because of that, he would be in awe. He'd be in awe of people in our communities who are in their late 30s, early 40s, and some even in their 50s that are able to give birth. He would be in awe of the medicine and treatments that we have that are battling the fiercest cancers and prolonging life. He would be in awe that the United States life expectancy continues to grow almost 1 year for every year of our evolution. That means 2 years ago, life expectancy in this country was 73, and now it's 75 years. He would be in awe. So my question is, why aren't we in awe? My maternal grandmother, Leah Wolin, the only one I knew, she spent her life with 3 purposes. One was caring for her 5 children and their spouses and their grandchildren. The second was anything related to her synagogue in Flint, Michigan. And the third was cooking. She loved to cook. So if she would walk into this synagogue, or she would hear some of the statistics that Rabbi Cohen rattled off yesterday, or she would see how many people are standing with our nation in its time, she would say, yes, L'dor Vador. Our tradition is continuing, and it is strong. She would say that all of the darkest hours that she lived through in World War I and World War II, and Korea and Vietnam, that people turned toward religion during that time, and it strengthened us, and it made us better. And as a cooker, she would be amazed to walk through any grocery store and see almost any single item you could imagine with a kosher label on it. And she'd be just as ecstatic for her husband, my namesake, who I never met, who was a big sports fan, and she forced him to keep kosher, that at 33% of all the Major League Baseball stadiums in America, there is a kosher hot dog stand. Not just Hebrew National, a certified kosher hot dog stand. He would be in awe. He would say, not only look at how the game is and look at all that happens, he would say, really? This is what we have. I can go to any of these stadiums and I can have a kosher dog. I can enjoy the game and take care of the needs that my wife has enforced upon me. This is great. All of my grandparents would marvel that we're 2% of the population and 10% of Congress. We're 9 Jewish senators and 26 Jewish congresspeople. That we punch far above our weight, they would be in awe. Now, I realize there are probably many of you who are saying to yourselves, really, Rabbi? The world is on fire? Anti-Semitism is at record heights? College campuses are vilifying Jews, and you want us to sing zippity-doo-dah. Rabbi, you are tone deaf. You are disconnected. You are unmoored to reality. I can assure you people have called me worse, even today. But I don't think I am. I think that I'm suggesting a perspective where we can hold on to the past, we can be grounded in our reality, but we can also see how far we've come. Franklin Foer, a talented writer for The Atlantic, penned an article in that magazine this past March, and it went viral. The title of the article was called, "The Golden Age of Jews in America is Ending." 99% of Jews I know read the title of the article, and about 2% of the Jews I know read the article. Foer's essay describes 20th century as a time when the Jewish Americans could both be Jewish and American. He called it a hyphenated identity, and that was part of the American ideal. But Foer argues that this era is ending, and that anti-Semitism has returned with a vengeance. He says that this new era is marked by conspiracy, by political violence, and by reckless hyperbole. I'm part of a very small group of interdenominational rabbis, mainly Reform and Conservative, a handful of Orthodox, and we are meeting around the country 3 times a year to talk about important change that needs to happen in the Jewish world at this exciting and challenging time. This group was formed before October the 7th, and I'm honored to be a part of this group. Foer, after he wrote this article, met with our group, and we had some important questions to ask him. We asked him, is America Berlin in 1935? Is this Kishinev in 1900? Are we in Toledo, Spain in 1491? And we all asked, scared to hear his answer. And he said in this brilliant and unapologetic tone, I believe in every syllable that I wrote. And I do believe that it is the end of the golden age of Judaism in America. But what I firmly believe, just the same, is that we are at the dawn of the platinum age of Judaism, that it was conceived today. The death of the golden era is the conception of the platinum one, which is like the Jewish teaching that the Messiah was conceived the day that the temple was destroyed. Seeing today through a lens of lottery and luck and blessings is not far-fetched. In fact, it's in its name. The Hebrew name for lottery is Purim. And there are countless commentators dating all the way back to Levi of Berdichev in the 1700s, to Aviva Zornberg, who lives in Jerusalem today, who have commented on the similarities between Yom Kippur and Yom Kippurim, the Day of Atonement and a day like Purim. First, they're both about casting lots and lotteries. Purim gets its name from a lottery because Haman decides which day, by basically casting a lot, the Jewish people will find the end of their fate. It's a roll of the dice. And Yom Kippur is a lottery because the high priest would go into the Holy of Holies and there'd be 2 goats before him, one that would be sacrificed and one that would be set free. Which would be the goat, and which would be the day for the fate of the Jewish people. In both cases, we are reminded uncomfortably about how much randomness plays a role in our lives. Purim and Yom Kippurim both invoke the idea of a king. In the story of Purim, Esther has to go before Achashverosh and hopes she finds him in a good mood. Because if he is in a good mood, then the fate and the future of the Jewish people can be saved. And the Holy of Holies is the place where the high priest would enter. He would say, God, I ask for your fairness and for your compassion and empathy today. Both are moments before a king where we ask for our future. And lastly, Yom Kippur and Yom Kippurim are two sides of a similar coin. On Yom Kippur, we don't engage in anything that can be seen as enjoyable. We're not supposed to wash our bodies. We're not supposed to put on perfume or makeup. We're not supposed to engage in intimate relations. We're not supposed to eat. We're not supposed to be joyous, and we don't wear leather as a sign of comfort. And on the holiday of Purim, it's 180 degrees the other way. We're supposed to eat so much and drink so much that we don't even know where we are. We're supposed to enjoy all of the things around us. We're supposed to take advantage of every blessing. So in essence, it just flips that coin 180 degrees. There is a country singer named Jelly Roll who is the rave in the music world. I don't listen to country music. I'm embarrassed to tell you how I found him. I was starving one day and I Googled where the nearest Danish was. And his lyrics came up. Maybe it was God, Kismet, I'm not sure, but he has this brilliant song that caught my attention. By the way, if ever you're hungry, don't look at a picture of Jelly Roll because you might lose your appetite. But man, he can sing, and he's a brilliant songwriter. He has this song, and he says in it, I only talk to God when I need a favor, and I only pray when I don't have a prayer. So who the hell am I to expect a savior if I only talk to God when I need a favor? But God, I need a favor. That's what we are. We are a people that seem to perpetually be fetching. We are a people that seem to always be asking for favors. We are a people that seem to always be driving by the West Side Highway and looking at the Powerball and dreaming, could it be us? We're people who are looking for that ticket, wondering which one is the winner, without realizing it's already in our pockets. We all, if we can take stock properly, have already picked the winning numbers. We're just not looking at the ticket. I'll tell you the moment in my life, which is one of the more embarrassing moments of my life, where this crystallized for me. Like all of us, when our kids reach a certain age, we have the responsibility to take them to Orlando and Disney World and Universal. And so I did with our kids, except I hate lines. It's one of my few things that just I cannot stand. And the idea of standing in a line for an hour and a half, I couldn't even fathom that. Luckily, one of our congregants said, oh, Rabbi, you just go to the website for Disney or Universal and you pay for this thing called a Fast Pass, and it allows you to skip the line. You just skip the line. You have to wait like 2 or 3 minutes with anyone else who pays for the Fast Pass, and then you go right on the ride. And I said, well, this is great. And I spent the money. It was worth every nickel because I only waited 5 minutes for every ride as opposed to 45 minutes. And then there was this family who had this lanyard around their neck with an even more impressive band about it, and they were waiting maybe 1 minute and going before us. And the only thing I thought was, wow, how do you only wait 1 minute? I mean, I don't have to wait 45, but I'm waiting 5. I'd like to have those other 4 minutes back. It's more time for more rides. So by the time I saw them on the 4th ride, I went up to the guy who was clearly the patriarch in the family, and I said, hey, I see you got those lanyards that make you skip all the line. How'd you get those? And he said to me, I'm not sure. They were given to us from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I never felt smaller in my life. And I never realized how blessed in life I really was. I was looking everywhere for a winning lottery ticket. And there I was with my kids, healthy and happy, trying to save 3 minutes instead of relishing in those minutes. I think about that story every day. This is the 10th day of the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah. It's the 10th day that we are reminded of our time of repentance. And 10 also represents the 10 commandments behind us. And if each day were to correlate to a particular one, today would be the day of lo tachmod, which means we don't covet. We don't look at what someone else has and says, boy, I wish I had that tie. I wish I had that spouse. I wish I had that dress. I wish I had that car. I wish I had that home. I wish I had their 401k. We don't do that. We just are supposed to look inside. It's the reason why we all wear white, because it's supposed to be like we're reborn. In fact, that's what today is. On every Jewish holiday, we reenact what happens. On Sukkot, we build a hut. On Passover, we have a feast. But what do we do when it comes time for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? How do we pretend we're reborn? Well, one of the ways we do it is by fasting, because we all come into the world empty and new. And one is by wearing the same clothing, the kittel, so that we all look the same. A couple weeks ago, I visited someone who was sick in our congregation at the Cornell-Weill Hospital. And I always get nostalgic when I go to Cornell-Weill because it was there that both of my kids were born. And in thinking about this theme in the high holidays, I remembered vividly in that ward where both of our children were born, which were at the moment the happiest days of my life, the happiest days of Dory's life. And it was one of those moments where I wanted nothing. I wanted nothing. I was just so grateful to God. Our kids came out healthy and strong, 10 toes and 10 fingers. We didn't know their gender when they were born, and we could care less what it was when they came out. Thank God at the time our parents were alive. When they were born, there was nothing we wanted. But all it took was a few days later when you get home, and then the wanting grows, and the desire grows, and you start thinking about that Powerball sign and buying the tickets. Today is a day when all of us are reborn. It's a day when all of us have an opportunity to clean a slate and to stop coveting, to stop wanting, and to reach into our pockets and to pull out that ticket and not think of the numbers we would choose, but realize the numbers that have been chosen and the incredible blessings that are in our lives. Today is a day where the challenges of the past year are not erased, but because of our sense of appreciation, they fortify who we are. They make us realize the gifts that we do have and the presents that are indeed in front of us, that we all are walking around with winning lottery tickets. What will be your perspective for the coming year? Are you going to be someone who says, I'm afflicted with cancer? Or are you going to be someone who says, I am blessed with an amazing support system, an incredible family, and amazing medicines that's going to fight this cancer with all that it has? Are you going to be someone that struggles to pay for your kids' tuition? Or are you going to be someone who pauses and thanks God that your kids are earning a top-shelf education? Are you going to be someone who complains about another group that has joined the ranks of those against the Jewish people? Or are you going to be steadfast and say, look how we respond to each of these groups in squelching them and in stopping them? Are you going to be a people who reminds us that our homeland of Israel in 76 short years has been attacked year after year with thousands upon thousands of rockets? Or are you going to be a people that reminds us that for 76 years we are realizing and living a miracle that our ancestors could not have dreamt of? Are we going to cry tears of sadness for those seats that are empty today? Or are we going to appreciate the notion that pain and sadness is the price we pay for having been loved and for giving love? Are we going to lament the end of the golden age of Judaism? Or are we going to pick up a chisel and start to carve out the platinum age of Judaism as it should be for you and me and our grandchildren? I think it's time for all of us to stop thinking at the local bodega of the numbers we're going to pick, of stop saying, Janie was born on July 12th, so we'll pick 6 and 12, and instead start saying, I have a family. I have love. I have a community. We have a nation of Israel. We are blessed in countless ways. And if we can see that perspective, if we can appreciate that we are already holding on to a winning ticket, then this year of being reborn and feeling the sense of blessing is just the dawning of the bright sunrise that is on our horizon. May it be God's will, and may it bless us all with health and with peace. Amen.